Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the Metallica Discography review series. And if you guys saw the last episode, I reviewed Master of Puppets. Now we're going to talk about And Justice for All. Now, the follow-up to Master of Puppets, and shortly after Master of Puppets, when Metallica was doing, after they did a tour with Ozzy Osbourne opening, which was their last tour they did, where they opened. After this, every tour they have done since, almost every single one of them, they headlined. And after the Ozzy tour, they headlined a European tour with Anthrax opening, which was pretty cool. Until they finished up a show in Sweden on the morning of September 27th, 1986. There was the bus accident that happened in Ljungby, Sweden, where they ran over black ice. They were in the bus, and Cliff Burton fell out of the window as the bus was tipping over and rolling over. He fell out of the window, and the bus landed on him, and Cliff Burton tragically died. Again, rest in peace, Cliff Burton. But shortly afterwards, Metallica were questioning if whether or not they should continue. And if they wanted to, they could have stopped right there, because they had already made 3 all-time classic heavy metal albums that would live on and will continue to live on forever. But they thought to keep Cliff's spirit alive and going, they would continue, and surely enough, they did continue. However, their search for a bass player was pretty tough until a kid named Jason Newsted, who came out of a big thrash band from the Phoenix area, Flotsam and Jetsam, came in, played, auditioned, and he became the new bass player for Metallica. And he would be the bass player until 2001, so he was the longest lasting bass player in the history of Metallica. Lasted 15 years and played on 4 studio albums, a covers album, and 2 live albums. So he did a lot of work, and he wrote a few songs for Metallica, and one of them is on this album. So now we get to the album, and we start off with the song Jason helped write, the opening song, Blackened. Very, very dark song. In fact, this whole album had a lot of dark lyrics. Like, the lyric topics for this album was about, like, nuclear war, about death, and the death of the American dream, and politics. This was probably their darkest, one of the most, probably up there with Death Magnetic as being maybe the darkest lyrical album Metallica ever did. And Blackened is one of the darkest Metallica songs of all time, but a very thrashy song. But also with this album, every song had a technical feel to it. So this was their most technical album they ever did, so this was along the lines of progressive metal and mixing it with thrash metal to make it a progressive technical thrash metal album. And this album is amazing for that reason. Blackened, one of the all-time classics. Then we get to the title track, And Justice for All, which is close to 10 minutes. One of their longest songs, and it's a great song. It's got some feels in it. Just a great song. And then we get to Eye of the Beholder, which is a very good mid-pace type of feel, a very technical song. Great drum patterns on this album. I had to say, Lars Ulrich's best drumming album would be this album, And Justice for All, especially for 2 songs. One of them I'm gonna mention next, another one I'm gonna mention towards the end. But Eye of the Beholder, great song. And now we get to one of the all-time most popular Metallica songs, One. Reason being because this was their first music video they ever did. Like, the music video to the song fit this song perfectly, and then people were questioning of whether or not it was really a ballad or it was just a softer, heavy song until it got to the set there near the end, where it got really heavy and pretty fast. And Lars playing the double bass on this song near that second half was just amazing. This is an amazing song altogether. It's a song about World War One, which was a really interesting topic for this song, and the music video to it fit that mold perfectly. Then we get to The Shortest Straw, which is me learning to be a drummer. Once I get good at it, this will probably be one of my all-time favorite drumming songs, because the drums on this song was insanely great. This song in general is fantastic. The riffs and just everything about it. Then we get to Harvester of Sorrow, which was another pretty popular song on this album. A very good song, great song with interesting lyrics about, this is another one of those like songs about death or whatever, about sorrow, whatever else you want to call it. Then we get to The Frayed Ends of Sanity, and the beginning of this song was very interesting with the riff, and that riff, that dun, 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 dun. That was an amazing riff James wrote again. I mean, once again, James Hetfield, the second best riff creator in heavy metal behind Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath. But Frayed Ends of Sanity is another one of those underrated hidden gems. Now we get to probably the most underrated instrumental in Metallica's history, To Live Is to Die. The first minute of the song has the acoustic guitars, and then after that minute it gets heavy riffs, and then to the middle part it gets pretty soft with the solo coming in, picks back up into the heaviness, and then the very end it fades back out into the acoustic. But there, even though this is an instrumental, near the end of the song there was a spoken word message from James, which was really interesting. So it had a spoken word part, but this is mostly known as an instrumental. But a great instrumental, a very underrated instrumental in Metallica's history. Now we get to up there as maybe being the most thrashy song from Metallica, Dyer's Eve. And the reason I say it is one of the most thrashy songs of their career is because Lars on the double bass, freaking fucking amazing double bass performance. This is Lars's shining moment on drums. This song. Fantastic riffs, solo, drums, all that. The lyrics to this song was a little weird. It was about like James's problems with his parents that he had back when he was a kid, which was really odd, but yeah. Now, And Justice for All as a whole is an amazing album. However, the flaws of this album, there was only two flaws. To production, it was still a little bit on the raw side, but after compared to the last album, Master of Puppets, did not sound quite as good. I mean, it wasn't a terrible produced album, but it just wasn't up to par with Master of Puppets, or even Ride the Lightning for that matter. And the second flaw is that you can't really hear the bass on this album. And again, nobody really knows the true reason why you couldn't hear the bass, and nobody knows if it was part of the whole hazing thing the rest of the guys did to Jason during this time, or there was problems with the engineer or something. But if you guys saw, for those of you who are heavy metal heads and watched that metal show on VH1 Classic, on last season Jason Newsted was a guest, and he said that there's many reasons for why you can't really hear the bass, but when he played, the bass frequencies was up there with James on rhythm guitar, so it was up there, but I guess there was issues with the engineer or something like that, and they didn't do it properly, and for that, the result was you couldn't really hear the bass too much on this album. So those are the only two flaws of this album, is the production not being up to par compared to Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning, and number two, you couldn't really hear the bass. But still, this is an amazing album nonetheless. I give this album a 9.25 out of 10. A fantastic album. And yeah, the next episode, we get into the album that kind of split a lot of diehard Metallica fans, but not in a huge way until the album that came after that. But the next album I'm going to get into is going to be one to talk about. Peace.